and it's called the Our Linda document, and it's got good
Erlinda document.
Our Linda, um, OERA, and then Linda, and that's it. And it's written. It's proved to be from 1296 AD. Well, by any kind of modern reckoning that we've got, um, and a lot of it's written in Coelbren, and it was in the safe possession of one family for it seems like the earliest bits of the document. It's been written by maybe 6 or 7 members of the same family over a period of maybe 500 years. And then the whole lot's been translated onto cotton, and this is how they've been able to date it to so early. With the cotton and the ink that we used, Damascus cotton, and then this black ink, it dates it pretty well. But anyway, it's a series of documents, and they're describing life in the Rhinelands 2000 BC. Which is quite fantastic, really. I mean, a lot of it is even before the Trojan War. But interestingly, the 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 document is talking about it's a matriarchal society that they had set up there, and how entities like Minerva, Athena, came from that place. They had a very sophisticated social setup, which was based around the religion, but also they had a system of commerce, which you had to basically qualify in these various disciplines, like to be a sea king or to be a captain of a boat or anything. You had to go through these qualification processes, and this is all going on sort of around 2000 BC. I haven't read much of the document yet, just most of the laws that they're coming out with, which is seems to the basis of English law that they were developing. Now, this is in a place that's called Friesland now, which is where they reckon the Anglo-Saxons came from. But also, of course, they talk about Atland quite a lot, and they put a date on Atland being destroyed by the sea. And of course it's in Dogger Bank, and it's 4,000 BC. He gives a very specific date for it. About 4,000 BC it works out to. 3,449 BC I think it works out to. So that's another interesting feature of this. Then another little interesting feature of it is that it mentions Ulysses a couple of times, having visited the place. So that's what drew me to this in the first place, for one thing. The other thing, it's in Coelbren, and the other thing is it is a document besides Homer that talks about Atlantis. I think there was only him and Critias who mentioned it, and then a few kind of Romans I think may have mentioned it, but not without any authority. But of course, this document talks about it, and then there's a couple of forms of writing. They reckon they set up Proto-Greek here out of the Coelbren. That it was the actual Coelbren was done first, and then Greek came out of that later on. And so it's outlining the premises of the religion and the rules of contact and everything else, really. And seems a very highly organised society from what I can see. And yeah, another fascinating one, and it all goes back to the Atlantic studies as well. So that's what makes it so interesting. Now, this document I've got a website for it, but you can't copy, reproduce it, or anything else with it. But I'll leave the link anyway.
Where did you end up finding these papers from?
Right. Well, this one was mentioned. That was mentioned in the British History program with Blackstock, and there are a couple of very good researchers on there. One being this woman called Marshall Abrams, and she lives in the area of Cambridge, the Gog Magog Hills, where she reckons Troy was. And then there are a lot of reasons. A lot of the battle landmarks are given, are very local. The names are very local to that place as well. So I just follow references out of these shows, Britain's Hidden History and a few others, and I'm actually bumping into quite a lot of pretty good stuff. Of course, while I'm running through this kind of information, I'll come through a name like Cadmus, who's obviously mentioned a lot in Greek mythology in various guises, and cadmium yellow, and so they give derivations of these names, and at the moment I've heard quite a lot of different derivations for Cadmus, maybe about 5 or 6 ones, and I would like to see where these kind of pop up, in what works they pop up. We'll see what the actual information is. It seems like a lot of the place names, etc., were transposed from the Atlantic country, Europe, from Atlantic Europe into the Mediterranean. But the actual Greek pantheon was slightly different. So I think we can really be onto something again. Again, by following these ideas of the of the pantheon through, and I'm sure this is saying the structure of the Sea Peoples as well. This is basically defining the structure of their structure, who they were allowed to marry. I mean, the Frisians didn't believe in taking slaves. Funny enough, this is 2000 BC. They didn't have slaves. If they took prisoners, they'd kill them, or they'd let them free. Stick them on an island or something like that. But they wouldn't keep slaves, which is an interesting kind of interesting. Seen as we've always been very anti-slavery in this country, as far as I can see it. Going back thousands of years. So
yeah, didn't Britain used to drop their slaves off and their prisoners off in Australia?
Yeah. They weren't considered owned. They was like prisoners. A lot of them, of course, got shipped out to the States or to Canada or wherever, or any places. But as far as having slaves goes, it was never a. They didn't exist in this country. We were the first place to make slavery illegal. Um, and in fact, in the American Civil War, the people around here refused to work with the American cotton because they were backing the anti-slave thing, so they all starved as well. So you know, this we've got a fairly good history of stopping slavery wherever we went.
What's this idea? What's this idea that white colonialists came from Britain and Christopher Columbus and had slave ships filled with black people? What's that idea? Is that not British? That's maybe a different country.
Well, if it was British, it was certainly an illegal. You know, they were illegal pirates who were doing it. I know when the colonial stuff started. You know, the tradesmen, the East India Company would take slaves one way and bring raw materials back the other. Sure. So you've always got these exploiters, but it was never allowed on you know, on soil here. It was never considered. Well, I mean, there was, you know, there was big arguments about slavery in this country, but it was basically fully outlawed in I think 1770, while it was in its. Sorry.
You guys also, the Brits also invented manners. So, like in a big way, as far as eating with a spoon, fork, etiquette at a dinner table, you know, like proper ways to be proper and courteous. And, you know, a lot of countries, a lot of places just do it differently or don't have manners at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things been attributed to, you know, Brit. I mean, as far as Britain goes, you know, you can see, you could either have your Oxford educated with the monocle and the border hat going down, patting down the Thames, or you could have your Scottish Highlanders, or you know, your Welsh taffy in the mines, or whatever, and you know, and I think you know, British describes a lot of different sort of cultural origins, but of course. Of course, what has been decided to be British by this latest ruling mob is completely different to the British from 200 years before that, you know. So I'm talking about the general consensus of the culture more than anything else, really. You know, rather than you're always going to have exploiters, aren't you? You know, I mean, and we were the first to get exploited by them as well. Don't forget that. You know, they learnt the tricks of the trade against us before they exported it anywhere. So, but anyway, it is quite fantastic to see, you know, that there are lines of enquiries to origins and where these a lot of where these myths came from. Pretty fantastic, really. So that's where my head's been at. And what about you, buddy? How's your work been going?
Oh, it's been going great. I'm doing this freeze-dried astronaut ice cream, and I just signed up for 2 3-day trade shows and a 3-day festival. So I don't even know if I'm gonna have enough product at that time to do that many, because it does take time to build up the freeze-dried ice cream product. So it's going really good.
And do you have to do you, at these shows? Do you just rent a pitch basically?
Yep, rent a booth because I'm under cottage laws with this this product that I'm working with. So I can, in America here and also in Michigan, they changed it so that people can make small batches of like baked goods and other things like that that don't have meat. And there's a couple things that you can't have or can't sell. But yeah, as long as they meet the requirements, then you can make them in batches in your house and sell them to the public.
Yeah, that sounds good. My pal came up this weekend. Yeah, I haven't seen him for a couple of months, but he grows this fruit and then he makes mead with it, and he makes very nice mead. It's quite strong, probably 13%, so well, more than that maybe. So it's like a very strong wine. It doesn't taste like strong. It tastes almost like lemonade or something. It's very strong.
I love mead.
Yeah,
Honey mead.
yeah, yeah. And he's done with 8 gallons of it.
Okay. See, now in America, we can't sell those under the cottage laws because it's alcoholic and you have to get a license to do that. You can give them out to friends and stuff like that and like sell a small batch here and there, like, a 6-pack or whatever.
Yeah.
But anything that's fermented, you can't sell under the cottage law. So like anything that's fermented, like kimchi to alcohol to, that covers pretty much any alcohol.
Yeah, yeah. I think it might be the same. I think you're allowed to. I don't know. I think you're allowed to if you sell over a certain amount, or if you make profit on a certain amount, then they demand duty off you, which is substantial. So you've got to make sure that isn't the case. But this stuff is so good that probably me and him will drink that this summer while we're doing a bit of work anyway. So yeah.
So how do properties go? So let me paint a little picture for you real quick. This is the grim picture that I'm sure a lot of us, the dystopian future that I'm sure a lot of us have heard of. But it comes from Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, and they're saying that you'll own nothing by 2030 and be happy.
Yeah.
Now, the way that I can see this happening is if we were to mimic what already happened in England, and I believe in Britain too, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is at least this is how it used to be, that you can't own land or property unless you are a noble, unless you are a certain class of individual, right?
Well, it used to be the case. It used to be the case that you had to be a certain class to obviously own property, but also even to have a vote, you had to be of a certain, status. But of course, now you can own land. You can own any land. At some times, some nobles were not. I don't think they were allowed to sell. Well, they weren't allowed to sell the title certainly, and then the land used to go with the title. So a noble couldn't just. I don't think they could just up and sell the land to somebody else. But yeah, basically you can buy freehold, that which means you haven't got a landlord apart from the Queen. You are allowed to do that, but most of it has been snapped up, of course. There's very little of that goes on the market.
Okay. All right. Yeah, because I see something happening here in the United States and also in the whole world through a company called Blackstone. It's the world's largest asset manager company, and what they're doing, it's actually tied into the government. And what they're doing is buying up people's houses all over, so that the houses can't go for sale anymore.
Yeah, I believe that's the case, buddy.
Blackstone owns it then.
I believe that's the case, and I think it's a model that started in China from, I think, the Hong Kong bank might have started it, but all the Chinese workers have put their private savings into it, and they've kind of I don't know if it's a Chinese version of Blackstone, but they've gone bust there just about. But I think it's a way of buying property on the international market. And so, like I say, all these Chinese have put the pensions in there and all that lot. Um, they are buying land out like crazy, but so are all the corporations are buying land like crazy now. Because there's no money in money. Land is the only thing you can use to make anything. You know, you need land to make anything or produce anything or to get
Right.
rent off anything.
In America, they don't even tell you about how important it is to get soil rights when you buy a house. People buy houses left and right all day and night here, and they buy land, but they're not buying the land. They think they're buying the land. They're paying all this money for nothing. Unless they
Yeah.
buy the soil rights or the mineral rights to the land, they're not getting anything. And a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there are levels of ownership, aren't there? There are complete levels of ownership, and you've got to be in the know. You've got to be in the know. It's a legal minefield unless you've sort of been brought up in that world or you study it a lot. You're not going to find out how to get into it. I've got my friend Murphy. I mean, he's pretty good at it. He buys land all over the place, but he buys it very cheap. But rather than save his money up in his bank, he just buys land with it every time he gets some.
Yeah, it's really smart to invest. I mean, that's a brilliant idea right there.
Yeah, yeah. So he's got this very nice piece up where I spend a lot of my time, just behind where I live, 4 acres, and he's gonna fill that full of fruit trees and make mead with it.
Well, if you go back, I think like 40% of our workers, or like 30% of our workers, used to work on the farms and farming and all sorts of different things. Now it's only like 1% of our workers. So that makes the farmland look undesirable and really desolate and not even really worth money, you know, because only 1% of the work is even on that land. That's why Bill Gates came in this last decade, and other buyers, and came in and bought. Ooh, that's a good one. I just seen this. Sorry, I was thinking red, white, and blue. Anyway, yeah, he came in and bought all the land when it looked like crap and when it was low value. And what they do with this farmland is they just build these huge house parks, and then, you know, Blackstone ends up owning the house park. So
Yeah.
like so it's just like guaranteed money to the government, and
no one can afford them.
Yeah. Well, you don't even own it. You rent, and
Yeah.
then there's no roof to the rent. There's no sky or no limit to the rent, so it can just continue to go up. And then
that's the model they've got here, buddy. Just earlier, I posted a drone flight of the South Lancashire Moors where I live, and it looks completely desolate there. Now, when I was that is owned now by the water boards, or Prince Charles owns a lot of it. It used to be common land, but now the landlord has got hold of it. You haven't got any rights up there really to do anything there, and they've that used to be full of heather, and so there'd be a lot of grouse and, you know, lots of heather and gorse, and so there'd be a lot of wildlife knocking around. And just this last 20 years, they've allowed beef cattle on there. I don't know who's put them on, but they've just torn up all the heather. They've destroyed the whole lot over the last 30 years, and it's just a total desert up there. They've built wind farms all over it, and the next thing is BlackRod's going to move in and put houses all over it. So, well, just check out the wind farm. It's that's a view of Rochdale from just a couple of miles from where I live as well. The other way, but yeah, it's new houses they're putting up. They're charging 140,000 quid to live in a shoebox, or just a basic bloody shoebox, and you're meant to work all your life to pay that off. Bloody hell's bells.
Yeah, no thanks. Yeah, exactly. You work years, you work decades and decades to pay off a tiny little house because you can't even make more money than that. Like people, well, a lot of the time, unless you got these niche ideas.
Unless you work for government, you haven't got any safety of employment, really. There's government and a few pretty big companies. There isn't much security of employment, and so many people they can get caught up halfway paying through the mortgage and lose everything they've put into it and end up out on the streets, just like everyone else. It's a scam. It's just a scam. And if there's any of it left when you've got old and you've paid it all, and they decide you can't look after yourself, stick you in a home, and then use your house to pay for the fees, which will last you maybe 2, maybe 3 years. 50 grand a year they'll have off you. 50 grand a year. So. And that's just to feed, give you a cup of tea every day and whatever. Anyway, shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame. But it's like you say, it's all falling to bits though now. And we won't own anything. Mr. Schwab and his pals will. They'll own it all. And how he thinks people are going to be happy under those circumstances, I think probably many of them will. I think many of them will. Don't know any different.
Yeah, I think people will be happy owning nothing, just like they're told. They'll be like, wow, great. Why haven't things been like this for longer?
Yeah, great. If I want something, I can just go and rent it. Apart from if you can't afford the rental rates that day. Bullshit. Well, a load of bullshit. Yeah. If you want something, you've got to go and buy it off one of the maybe 5 or 6 companies who will be able to produce it for everyone in the world. And here we are all fighting for freedom for Ukraine. Yeah, send the brave lads some more rockets. Fight for freedom. Fucking hell. What a joke. What an absolute joke. It's a very dangerous situation down there now. It's getting worse by the minute. I'm just amazed. I'm amazed there's been none of these sort of false flags going off yet. Big ones. It only takes. Yeah.
Seems like it's going pretty smooth and quiet. Waiting for the big fake false flags here.
Yeah, well, I think it remains to be seen what's. They're talking. They're talking doing nuke strikes, aren't they? If things get too rough, they'll do. they reckon a good thing to do would be set off a strategic nuke in the North Sea. That might set, sort of sober people up a bit. But I think I think they're playing for very high stakes now. They're playing for very high stakes, and so they won't tell us what they're playing at for, really. But I don't think it's good.
Yeah. Well, what else is going on? What's going on? I guess there's a lot of convoys moving right now. There's one convoy moving on its way to Washington, D.C. that should be there by March 5th for the president's inaugural address or something, State of the Union speech. So there's a huge truckers that started in Canada and part of the Canadian truckers movement that's coming to Washington, D.C. We're on high alert for all nuclear threats. And they already moved in, I think, military personnel to help protect or watch over Washington, D.C.
Well, I think Washington, D.C.'s already built a wall around itself now, hasn't it? It's got its own police force. It's all particularly to look after the senators, I think, or the House or whatever that is. So it's got its own police force. It's put up its own barriers. It's given its police force incredible rights. I mean, they're like Gestapo number 2, easy peasy. And then you've got they're in 2,000 18-wheelers rolling down there. I think they'll send up over a military jet with a fuel air explosive on it and blast a lot of them. That's what I reckon Biden will do, me,
Yeah.
I do, yeah. Because he's gently with the with the wrong people, like Black Lives Matter and these people rioting, but he don't like it when the good old boys are rioting at all. He'll want them massacred. He will. They're his big threat. And of course, if you can block Washington off like they did Ottawa, well, it's just provoking. It's provoking. It's a protest. It's a legal protest. So, I mean, I'm with them in many ways. I think one thing we shouldn't do is let these politicians off the hook because there's a war on. Now they're all turning into fucking war leaders, aren't they? Pricks. What a bunch of dickheads. Should give them weapons and let them go and punch it out. Bunch of dickheads. Completely useless. What I mean, we're paying these diplomats £1 million a year for them to go on the parties and hobnob with billionaires. And they can't stop them. Something quite simple like, make a negotiation, an objective negotiation. They can't manage it. Can't manage it. What's the point of them? There isn't one.
So speaking of convoys, then there's more convoys. There's convoys in Russia on the way to Ukraine. There's convoys in Ukraine protecting its borders. I guess there's all sorts of convoys. It's there. And
Strikes me. I suppose if you've got any weapons, you might just stick them in a convoy. Really, just drive them up in it.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
boys are filled with weapons.
yeah, yeah.
It's three tanks deep for like 40 miles. 3 tanks wide for 40 miles.
That'll be bad when they're getting near there. That'll be bad.
I got a
So,
good friend who's in America who's flying out to fight for Ukraine. There's an entirely new branch of the military that Ukraine just started for civilian fighters that are flying in to help fight and give them aid.
wow,
Yeah.
that's a hell of a dangerous place. So, does he do that? Is that his job? Is he a sort of mercenary? Well, soldier, I suppose, mercenary soldier, innit?
Yeah, he's been in the military and pilot and a firefighter and a bunch of other stuff. So he just likes high intense situations. So he's going out there, or he signed up to go out there. So they're gonna. I guess we'll see if they're gonna let him go or not. I don't know who. I don't know who would hold him back. I mean, if you want to go fight, I think you're allowed to.
Yeah. I just don't think you've got any. Well, does that Geneva Convention still hold if you're just going for fighting for money? I don't know.
If you want to fight for money.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a difficult one. I mean, people have the reasons, don't they? People have the reasons.
Yeah, he was out. He was out there before, and he's got friends out there, and he said that if it ever got heated again, that he'd come out there and help defend them. So he's going out there to be a man of his word and to help his friends.
Fair enough. They're going to need some with all them tanks and what have you. Bloody hell. But,
yeah, it looks intimidating, that's for sure.
Well, that's it, and I think he's kept a lot of his stuff back as well at the moment. So I think he's only well. I don't know. I think his supply lines they seem fairly well blocked up, don't they? I mean, the reports are that convoy is pretty well stationary. But you wonder. I suppose at some point they're all going to go off road and totally surround Kiev. I mean, they're almost surrounding it now, I think. And then it'll just be crush the place, won't it? Bomb it to shit if all the tanks come in.
Yeah, well, I hope it doesn't go that way, personally. Either way, I mean, it's going to be dangerous. There's definitely going to be some craziness.
Yeah. Well, I saw on reports they're still trying to get women and kids out of the town, so there's still trains running out of town. Like you say, a lot of the men are stopping. They're stopping to defend the place, their homes. That's going to be an hell of a thing, though, that.
There's an actor, I think, I forget his name, but he's filming a documentary, and his car ran out of gas, and he just ran to the Polish border to Poland, to seek refuge, like a lot of the people are doing.
Right. Yeah. Well, Poland's the other side of Belarus. And Poland's been fighting to keep refugees out of there for the borders for this last year. It's had a big border crisis. It's a bit more used to having borders than other places. Is Poland, so they can handle it. Estonia, Latvia used to be part of the USSR, and there's they're under a lot of pressure. I think they're part of the part of the NATO though, those, so they're a bit safer than other ones, as is Poland. Finland, Finland and Sweden weren't part of NATO, but now they desperately want to join. Having so it looks like NATO's changing its shape anyway. It's more of a European army with the Americans backing it, by the look of it. The one thing about all this is Europe has no energy resources. It's highly dependent upon Russia. Of course, the US has decided to stop producing, which is a ball ache. So now we've just got Iran and Russia producing the world supply. Saudi's very happy to watch the price go right up, and so yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think the Russian pipeline is still actually open, believe it or not, after all these sanctions and crap like that. I think they're still siphoning a bit of oil around here and there. Interestingly enough, it's amazing, but it looks like if Russia just said right, pull the plug, then Europe's out of gas. I think they've got a fair negotiating hand, really. I think they have still. It just depends how long this war goes on for now. I mean, it might go on for 5 years, just like the thing in around the Crimea area where they've been shelling each other for the last 5 years. So that remains to be seen. Of course, must be affecting Hunter Biden's all share prices. This on his Burisma holdings. I wonder if the Burisma holdings have got anything to do with our strategy. You wonder.
Sorry, at the grocery store. You're gonna have to give me a minute. Check out.
Okay, don't. Yeah, how long gone for a minute? I think. Okay, I'll see you in a bit.
All right, I'm back.
So the groceries.
Yeah, I'm at the checkout. Just getting a bunch of good stuff. Pint jars, canning jars. I'm building a whole new display because everything, the amount of money, the amount of times that people reach in their pocket to give you the money that they have, is all dependent on how your display looks.
Yeah.
it all depends on how your display looks. Are you going to attract the kids? You know, how are you going to attract the kids? With colors, with ice cream, with games? You know, like it has to look a certain way, you know? So that's one of my main customers, because I'm a product designer, so I have a few products, and one of the products that I'm releasing this year is, well, I mean, the ice cream is definitely a dead giveaway for all ages plus kids. And I'm pushing, or I invented a new sport, so I'm delivering this sport to the world this year. I patented it and came up with it years ago, but I've been waiting to have the freedom to travel, so that I can spread the word. You know, I've been waiting to have my wings, so I'm not locked down, so I can travel around and advertise and spread the product.
Yeah.
So
brilliant.
Finally happened this year, but it's fun.
It's good when you get one of those traveling years when it all comes together and you can off you go, and it's a whole new adventure, isn't it?
My God, can't wait.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those years for me. Luckily, been working my ass off to afford to get to a place like this, so I can go see and travel the United States. Yeah. I bought a nice big van last year, so I can sleep in the van and I don't have to worry about accommodations. I do freeze-dried food, so I freeze-dried my meals for the next 2 years. If I want, I can just go. All I need is water, and I have all of these gourmet meals that I've been cooking. You add water to it, and it's ready to eat. So.
Yeah, that's brilliant. My buddy, he dries all his tomatoes. He's got one of these dryers, and you know, you can if you just get the fruits of the forest, you can make really lovely chewy fruit bars out of them. You know, and especially, you know, when dried fruit and honey and bits of oats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can make some really nice stuff with it, can't you? Really nice.
Long lasting too, you know, like the shelf life, like 25-year shelf life if you get a freeze dryer versus a dehydrator. Two totally different machines.
Yeah. I bet that'd be interesting if you could do some nettle products, you know. The thing with nettle is it's not massively tasty, but it's so nutritious, you know. It's absolutely vibrant. I wonder what you could put in with nettle to liven it up. I mean, wild garlic's lovely. It goes with things.
Well, I guess one of the big nutritional items that's good for freeze drying is broccoli, because broccoli is so nutritional, and then you can break it down to broccoli powder. And a lot of weirdos around here like their smoothies and their nutritional smoothies, so they just put powders instead of eating. They don't like to eat; they just like to drink. I don't have time to eat. I just drink my meal. They put their broccoli powder or whatever else in there, and it's done. So 3 or 4 scoops of this, some ice, and blend it, and they're ready.
Yeah, I suppose it's an instant cold soup, instant gazpacho. Yeah, interesting. What you could do, stuff you can do with that.
Soups turn out one of the best, because it's already mixed together. You know, you just add water, you know, hot water, and it's ready to go.
Yeah. Well, I guess powdered soups are quite an old concept. But It comes down to the quality, doesn't it? It's you know, if it tastes as fresh as it was when you've packed it, that's a big difference. Um, that's getting that
Yep.
taste packed in. Yeah, and
Yeah, the quality. That's the good thing. The quality is there, and yeah, it's nutrition. 90, or I think they say 89 or 90% of the nutrition, or maybe even more nutritional value of the whatever you freeze dry stays there.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, which is brilliant because I suppose when if you're boiling cabbage, you unless you drink the cabbage water, you're going to lose sort of 40-50% of the nutritional value in it easily. Um, so I suppose that'd be different in a powdered soup where you're just adding hot water. Uh, yeah,
yeah, add in hot water and you eat it right out of the Mylar bag. Um, I mean, it's a meal ready to go. MRE, meal ready to eat.
yeah, yeah.
Not
Well,
only
I don't think, I don't think you'd have to sort of market it with knives and forks in this country. We're not too much sticklers on it, to be honest. Especially, especially fast food like that. If it's something that you can scoff while you're working, you know, um, especially people like that sort of thing. Um, you know, if it came in, if you did it in a sort of a polystyrene cup dispenser, where you can just you know, rip the top off and put the water in, mix it, and sip it for half an hour while you're working or whatever. Uh, things like that. I
that's a
think
good idea.
yeah, they're pretty good. Or for if you're driving, I know if you got a driving job, it's nice to just sip on a drink, you know, as you for over an hour or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
about to make a nice coffee myself right now.
yeah, yeah. All right then, buddy. I'm going to carry on with my studies, I think, pal, and I'm going to start making a map of all this lot. It's going to be quite a big map.
All right, Nick. Well, good talking with you, brother. And
That was a good show, guys. I'm gonna hit the stop record. Great show. I'm gonna credit you guys for this one. That was a lot of fun to listen to.
Oh, nice one, Rommel. Thank you.
No, great, really good chemistry. So excellent. Okay, I'm gonna